Well, I'll tell you what. A couple of years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I thought that the possibility existed that could definitely become this new world order. Klaus Schwabi. Everybody's going to give in, and they're all going to be ruled by the power elite out of Europe or wherever, or the United States, wherever. But the rise of the multipolar world, whether it be China or the BRICS, they're having none of it. Okay, the rest of the world, okay, this New World Order crowd is all a Western European, U.S.
It's a pipe dream.
Pipe dream. Okay, thank you. Very good. That's a good word. And they talked about it and they fantasized about it. But I can tell you right now, I think it's an idea that is now dead in the water.
You're watching Capital Cause, and my name is Danny, and today's guest is Ed Steer. Ed, thank you for coming back on the show.
My pleasure, Danny.
All right, well, let's just dive right in, Ed. I think what's on everyone's mind right now is the election results. Trump is going to take a second term, and it appears he's going to have a Senate behind him. The House is yet to be decided. It could go either way. But with all this in view, what does this imply for the markets in general, but also the gold market, the silver market, the precious metals market as a whole?
Well, it's hard to say right off the top. I mean, the dust is starting to settle from this. Like you said, they have control of the Senate, but not the House. And of course, it all, as far on the political scene, we have to wait until Mr. Trump takes the presidency in January before he can start doing anything. But you can already see from the stories on the internet that, D.C. and the Beltway has started to hunker down, and there's a lot of policy changes going on. So, this is very much a fluid situation. The only, I'm glad that Trump won. And the reason I have more hope for him this term than the last term, because of the people that he's surrounded himself with this time, like Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard and Ron Paul and let's see who else. Yeah, right. All of these people, Tucker Carlson. He had the swamp creatures before, and they were all working against him. The people he's got now are an entirely different breed of cat. They know where all the bodies are buried. They know what they have to do, and just a matter of whether they're going to do it or not. But America, unfortunately, is a train wreck now. And I'm just hoping that Mr. Trump, once he gets the levers of power in his hand, actually gets out there and takes an axe to everything. And the first thing he's got to do is get these two wars that are going on, the one between Ukraine and Russia, and the one in the Middle East. They got to get those stopped immediately, because the killing goes on and on every day. That will be the real test of his presidency once he steps into the reins of power.
Zelensky today told his troops to exit out of Russia.
Well, that's news to me. I must admit, I'm not up on the latest news yet. Is this a very dynamic situation now? Now that Trump is in power, there's a lot of things going to change in Europe regarding NATO and regarding all the military alliances. There's a new sheriff in town now, and everybody knows it, and everybody knows that it's going to be a different presidency from Trump this time than last time. So everybody's in a mad panic to do something. And like I said, it's a very, very fluid situation, and it's going to take months, if not another year or so before, the things settle down. But, the world as we know it up until yesterday has changed totally. And now it's just a matter of seeing how it all shakes out.
Silver's still holding up its, at the $31 level. Gold is at the $26.75 level. So it appears that they've been holding fairly strongly towards their respective supports. $2,600 for gold, $31 for silver. Why is the market pricing in lower precious metals prices under a Trump presidency?
Well, first of all, you have to look at the price action last night in Globex trading from 6 p.m. onwards when the markets opened. Gold, all the poor precious metals desperately wanted to rally. I mean, they were making every attempt to rally, but the 8 largest commercial traders, which are mostly U.S. bullion banks, were in there to make sure that it didn't happen. And then at the 2:15 p.m. Shanghai Gold Fix, afternoon Gold Fix on their Wednesday afternoon, they hammered them down pretty good They recovered a bit, but then they were sold lower. I don't think this has anything to do with Trump or anything to
Mm.
do. This is despite the fact the dollar was soaring, which was a short covering rally in the dollar index because everybody short the dollar, so they were covering. What was happening? This is all paper trading in the COMEX futures market. This had nothing to do with Trump or the dollar or anything else. It was the commercial traders that are massively, massively short. This is the banks and the investment houses. They've been massively short the precious metals now for months and months. It's something I write about in my column in every Saturday's Commitment of Traders report. I continue to point out the fact that the short position held by these collusive commercial traders is so grotesque and so obscene that they took the opportunity in overnight trading to run the prices down, which they're quite capable of doing. So, people looking at this with some sort of alarm, I wouldn't. This is just all paper action in the COMEX future market. Underneath, the fundamentals haven't changed at all. I mean, the world is in terrible financial condition. The debt continues to rise. This is just a temporary setback. We've had them before, and this too will pass. And once we get past this, whether it takes a week or a month or whatever it takes, gold will be and silver will be off to the races once again. So this is just like I said, paper positioning in the COMEX futures market.
Gotcha. And on the side of the broad market, could it also just be like an initial sugar rush just based off of narrative that Trump is most likely better for the economy?
Well, I mean, you take a look at the 10-year, which I'm looking at right now, 4.43 up, 14 basis points. That's the biggest one-day move I've seen.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that all the Western world, the entire West is in print or die mode. They have to create more and more money just to keep the economies and the financial system, standing still. And nothing has changed. And Trump, who has promised the moon and the stars as far as the economy goes, and there's only one way to do that, and that's to go out there and get borrow more, borrow more, borrow more. And this is being reflected in the bond market. And this is a big, big red flag. When you see interest rates start to jump up like this, and the bond market, the stock markets, this is the initial reaction. But when they start looking at this bond market, Mr. Bond is not happy at all. And the chances, of things going sideways in the equity markets are very strong. And of course, we got the FOMC results of the FOMC meeting tomorrow, and that's going to be another brick in the wall. It'll be interesting to see what Powell et al. Do when Powell opens his yap at 2:00 tomorrow afternoon Eastern time.
Why is it that the bond market's kind of decoupled from the Fed funds rate, so to speak? We've seen the yield continue to rise as opposed to the Fed funds rate, which has been cut 50 basis points yet as of last month.
Well, the bond market is sniffs one thing. It smells inflation. There's just no. I mean, inflation's been out there for a while. Everybody says, well, it's down to 2 or 3%. Well, nobody buys that, and the bond market has been sniffing that out for several months now. And now that Trump is elected, like I said, he's going to turn the money spigots on, and the bond market is the first thing that smells inflation, and away it goes. That's why this counterintuitive engineered price declines in the precious metals, like I said, is so counterintuitive. They should be blowing sky high right now, but the paper traders, the banks are sitting on their respective prices. So that's one of the discontinuities you see right now, which sooner or later will correct itself. And when it does, like I said, the precious metal prices will correct with a vengeance.
Yeah, there is one commodity that's up today, and that is nat gas for some reason up 3% today to a price of 275. Oil is flat today. What does this mean? Why is nat gas up so significantly, do you think?
Well, natural gas, I plot I put the chart for natural gas in my column every day. It's extremely volatile. I mean, it's only what is it selling for right now? Yesterday it closed at 267 per 1,000 cubic feet. And a 5% move in that is only like 13 cents.
Hmm.
So, it's so cheaply priced. It doesn't take much of a move
Right.
in cents terms for it to move like 4 or 5 or 6%. So when I see natural gas move 5%, I don't even bat an eyelash because it's only gone up 13 cents. It could be, I mean, winter is approaching in the northern hemisphere. Here in British Columbia, where I am, it's a beautiful sunny day, but old man winter is definitely coming. There's snow on the higher elevations right now, and the demand for gas is going to pick up. So, natural gas is not one of the things that I use as a barometer for anything. I just track it because it's a kissing cousin of crude oil, which is the lifeblood of the world economy. It's not natural gas.
Yeah, crude oil is flat today. Ed, what do you anticipate from a second Trump administration in terms of their economic policies and how they would impact the market? I know it's a little too early to get into that kind of stuff, but from what you're seeing now from some of the people like you've alluded to that he's hanging around with, what can Trump do that could positively benefit the economy and the markets?
Well, like you said, this is wild ass speculation. Nobody really knows. All I get the impression from listening to other people and knowing what he's been promising is he's going to be spending money left, right, and center. And to do that, he has to borrow more. And the economy in the U.S. and in the Western world in general is in terrible shape. It's contracting and would implode if like I said before, if the central banks of the world weren't printing money hand over fist. So, with a 10-year yield up, 14 basis points a day, this is not a good sign for the economy. It doesn't make any difference what Trump does. He's still fighting the fact that U.S. and the West is in economic decline. So what he's able to accomplish, I have no idea. And like you said, it's way too soon to speculate. But as far as I'm concerned, if you take a look at the long term over the last 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, the West is in decline, and there's nothing that's going to save it. It's going to meet its manifest destiny one of these days, and it's starting to show up. Well, gold's like at $2,800 an ounce, even though it's down $75 today. Gold's at $2,800 an ounce, up over 35% this year. The bond yield has turned north with a vengeance. That should tell you all you need to know. That you know, despite all the happy talk and the brush up in the Bitcoin and the Dow and S&P, underneath the surface where you can't see it is, it's rotten to the core.
Yeah, the de-dollarization process is still underway, like you've mentioned, and you still have this BRICS coalition that you have to contend with as well. How do you see BRICS? Um, do you see any changes in terms of their policies with a second Trump administration, or will they just keep stay the course?
They're going to stay the course. I mean, the thing is this. Okay, America, I'm talking about not the average American person that's going to be listening to this podcast. I'm talking about the U.S. deep state, the military industrial complex, has had a mission ever since the end of World War II to become the biggest, baddest nation in the world. And they were a good nation up to a point, and all of a sudden they turned rogue, and that started during the Vietnam War. And I'm sure you're a little young to remember that, but I remember it all too well. And ever since then, they've taken out the big stick, and I don't think there's a country in the world, including my country here in Canada, they haven't beaten us at least once or twice with it. And for other countries in the world, it's even more than that. And the other countries in the world, especially now that the rise of China and Russia and the so-called developing third world countries, their economies are now strong enough, and they have enough gross national product where they said, we're tired of being beaten by Uncle Sam. This has been going on. We've had a regime change in our country 3 times in the last 10 years or 5 times in the last 25 years, and they're all sick and tired of it. So they said, I'll tell you, we said, let's get together and we'll form our own bloc, and we'll trade independent of the United States and the West as much as they can. And the BRICS summit in Kazan 2 weeks ago was, just the thin edge of the wedge. It's going to take a while for this thing to become fully mature, 5 or 10 years. But, the writing's on the wall for the West, especially the U.S., which, you can't go around beating the hell out of people for decades at a time before finally they say, we've had enough and we're going to go our own ways. And it is not going to be beneficial to the rest of the world, the West, and particularly the United States. So, the writing's on the wall for the U.S. dollar, and it's already in decline. And it's going to continue slowly, but it's not going to disappear, that's for sure. But the rest of the countries of the world are sick of the way the U.S. has been treating them, and rightfully so.
Is there a way for the U.S. to turn it around, though? Or is this kind of like a doom spiral that we're on?
Well, I'll tell you what, the deep state power in Washington and the military industrial complex is so deeply entrenched that it would take virtually a revolution to change them, okay? Now, could Trump do that? I suppose he could. Does he have the courage to do that? I don't know. His people that he's got around him certainly know where all the bodies are buried, and that certainly applies to Tulsi Gabbard, who, if I could pick person to be the president of the United States, it would be her. I think she's eminently qualified and very well spoken and extremely intelligent. That would be my pick for the president. It can be turned around, but I can tell you right now that once Trump gets in there, if they don't strike hard and deep and show no mercy at all, the chances of this happening are pretty slim. So it's too soon to say, and I'm going to reserve judgment. I'm going to give Trump and his people the benefit of the doubt, for 6 months or a year, and we'll see how it turns out. Can it be turned around? I certainly hope so, because if they can't, the United States is going to continue to decline precipitously at some point, and you can already see signs of that. And of course, the fact that even BRICS is being contemplated and being hatched into existence, it means that the United States has got itself into a hole that unless they correct their ways either by willingly or by force, they're permanently in decline as the hegemonic power in the world.
Does this tie into the World Economic Forum plan to kind of absorb the United States into like this Western, I don't know, hodgepodge, let's say, where it's not, you're not really as focused in on individual nations as you are on a union, like a North American union, or like some sort of union between the EU and the United States, something of that nature, where the United States loses its sovereignty?
Well, I'll tell you what, a couple of years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I thought that, the possibility existed that could definitely become this new world order, Klaus Schwaby, everybody's going to give in and they're all going to be ruled by the power elite out of Europe or wherever, or the United States, wherever. But the rise of the multipolar world, whether it be China or the BRICS, they're having none of it. Okay, the rest of the world, okay, this new world order crowd is all a Western European, U.S.
It's a pipe dream.
Pipe dream. Okay, thank you. Very good. That's a good word. And they talked about it and they've fantasized about it. But I can tell you right now, I think it's an idea that is now dead in the water with the advent of BRICS and the fall of the U.S. from grace. Not helped by the war between Russia and Ukraine, which is being fought, and I understand why Russia is doing it, and although it's never happy to see, I fully agree with what they're doing. The West, the U.S. in particular, never expected Russia to do what it did, so that really set them back. And of course, we got this little brouhaha in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, and I'm certainly hoping that doesn't blow up. But as far as a new world order, trying to get a new world order with what we have, circling around us today in the West and with these two wars and the rise of the BRICS, good luck with that.
Hey guys, quick pause. I won't take too much of your time, but if you're looking to add into your gold and silver stack, please consider Miles Franklin. More specifically, email them, info@milesfranklin.com, and tell them that Capital Cosmos sent you in the subject line to unlock special pricing that you won't find on the website. In the unlikely event that you don't like the prices, you could always not buy. There's no commitment necessary, but I do recommend Miles Franklin for a number of reasons. The customer support is top notch, the prices are great, and I know the people there. Great people all around. So with all that said, let's get back to the video. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I think so as well, especially if you look at the oil reserves available within each side. I believe that BRICS has the plurality of the world oil reserves versus the Western nations. A lot of it comes from Canada and the United States. Europe doesn't have any oil reserves, neither does the UK. But what's more interesting is if you look at their consumption to production ratio, the BRICS nations produce by a factor of 5x more than they consume. Whereas with us in the United States and Canada, we consume as much as we produce. So they actually have all the collateral, not all of it, but they have the vast majority of the collateral, and they have they have a much better means of production to consumption.
Well, yeah, and it's oil, of course, is the lifeblood of the world economy. I'm certainly not doubting that. And the BRICS, you take a look at all the countries that are under the BRICS umbrella and that are considering joining the BRICS umbrella. It's a large portion of world oil production and consumption. But it's not just oil; it's everything else too. Whether it be coal, lead, zinc, aluminum, uranium, gold, silver,
Right.
whatever. The developing nations, okay, third third world like Mexico, all of South and Central America, Africa, which the West has lumped into this third world, which they're all used to be colonies of the West at one time, and some of them still are that way in some sense. You know, once this BRICS thing, this just started. I mean, this is an ongoing story, which is going to get larger and stronger as time goes on. It's a fight. Samuel P. Huntington wrote a book way back in the 1990s, 97 or 1990s called "The Clash of Civilizations," where the next war will be fought between cultures. Well, that's exactly what's happening now. It's it's clash between the East and the West. The white people against everybody else, as Doug Casey likes to put it. So that's what's going on. And the other thing is that Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote a book which I've read. It's called I can't something about American primacy and its strategic
The grand
imperatives.
chessboard.
Like grand chessboard, yes, the grand chessboard, American primacy and America's geostrategic imperatives. I read that book and I own it, and this is what he had to say. He said, that for America to become the world's superpower, they have to take over the heartland of Asia. And of course, the Chinese read the book too, and so did the Russians, and so did the people in Kazakhstan, and all these other countries. And he said, just a minute, I don't think we're going to buy into this party. So, his book and Samuel P. Huntington, Samuel was right. It's a clash of civilization, but it came about not because a pure chance. It came out because the Americans, the deep state new world order, or deep state military industrial complex said, we're going to take over the world. This is what we have to do. So if they could be made to disappear, the U.S. deep state and British and Israel, if you could take those three countries and their power elite and deep six in the world, would be a wonderful place to live in. And like you mentioned before, can Trump make a difference? He's up against all the money and all the power and all the evil in the world, and I wish him and his team well, but that's the situation that we find ourselves on a global basis right now.
Yeah, and as we kind of spiral out of control here in the West, China and Russia and Iran, I think they're just going to let us fight amongst ourselves and pick up the pieces from where they may lie afterwards, because we're doing a better job in dismantling our own supremacy than they ever could.
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, there's an old saying in wartime. He said, "You never interfere when your enemy is in the process of destroying itself."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's going on in the West right now. The BRICS and China and countries like that are getting together. They don't have to. They can put a little pressure on. They keep a little steady pressure on it, but the West is basically crumbling under massive debt, and there's just no way out. So all they have to do is just sort of wait them out, and the West will crumble on its own. So it's just a huge financial mess, and sooner or later, I mean, in my lifetime, I turned 76 last month. And I remember the 50s and 60s when America was great. And, I lived here in Canada and everyone wanted to be an American and go there. I take a look at what it was like back, 60 years ago and what it is today. I mean, America is a totalitarian state. It's just depressing to see. And it all came about because of the military-industrial complex, and the power elite in the U.S. have basically destroyed the country and taken the entire world with it. It's most unfortunate.
Ed, why do you think that Russia is creating a silver reserve? Silver has not been used as a monetary metal for quite a while, for I want to say over 100 years. What are they planning with the silver reserve?
Well, they're talking about diversifying into buying other metals like silver, platinum, and palladium, and things like that, and adding to their strategic reserves. I follow this very closely, and twice this year, the last time being in early September, they said that they were going to be spending, I don't know, it was 530 million or some obscene amount of money on extending their gold and foreign exchange reserves. And I was waiting for that to show up in the October numbers and the September numbers, and it on the Central Bank of the Russian Federation's website. And they haven't, the Russia hasn't added an ounce to its gold reserves since they added 1 million ounces in February of 2022. So this myth about Russia adding to its gold reserves is just that. It's a myth. The Russia knows perfectly well that about the price management scheme of the precious metals by the West. And I think this is their subtle way of saying, we're going to start pulling some of our metals so that we can get free market prices. Because nothing you see out there as far as commodity prices are concerned are trading at free market value, including gold, silver, platinum, palladium. Nobody knows what the true free market prices of anything is out there, whether it be those four precious metals, the rest of the commodity complex, crude oil, natural gas. Nobody knows because their prices have been actively suppressed in the COMEX futures market since shortly after Nixon took the U.S. off the gold exchange standard back in 1971. And in order to keep everybody in paper, whether it be bonds or stocks or whatever, they've had to actively suppress commodity prices, which they've been doing for the last 50 years. And the signs of that coming unglued, slowly but surely are, you can see it in the gold market, the silver market, and the U.S. and China have been known about this for at least the last 20 some years. And getting back to your original question, I think the reason that Russia is going to add to their reserves, if they actually follow through on that, is because they're tired of themselves, because they're a commodity producing nation, not getting fair value for whatever commodity they happen to be selling in the market, whether it be the precious metals or copper, aluminum, or whatever, or uranium. And that goes not just for Russia, it goes for every other commodity producing nation in the world, which is just about every nation in the earth, including the United States and Canada and a lot of countries in the West. But it's the so-called third world countries like Africa, Central and South America, where a lot of the resources come from. And, they're rich nations, as Chris Paulo-Gata said, they're rich nations insisting on being poor. And if they were getting an honest price for, let's pick silver, my personal opinion is that silver right now should be trading between $250 and $280 an ounce US. That's where it should be, based on the supply-demand fundamentals, its rate of production, and its rate of consumption. We're in a 4-year structural deficit, which will be 5 years starting in January. I mean, this has been going on forever, and price of silver is what, $32, $31 and change today. I mean, that's absolute. It's ludicrous. That's how much they've been suppressing the price. And silver is the most shorted material on planet Earth. Silver analyst Ted Butler, rest in peace, Ted, has been on the silver price manipulation thing since was on it for almost 40 years. Yeah, he knows the score. Russians know the score, and that's why they sort of said, look, we're going to start saving silver, platinum, and palladium and other crucial metals and put them in our strategic reserves. And I think that was just a warning shot across the bows of the Western central banks that, we're aware of your price management scheme, and we'd like it to end, and please do it as soon as you can, and we're going to see if we can help it out. So one of these days it will come to an end.
Yeah, most of this gold buying, for example, is primarily from the East, Eastern central banks. Why is it that the West is not stockpiling any gold, at least to the same tune as the Eastern counterpart is?
Well, for the most part, the Western central banks, if you believe their statistics, have a lot of gold already. You take United States, say they have 8,000 tons of gold, and nobody really believes they have it or have it all. And if they do have it, some of it's encumbered. And a lot of the gold they're holding may be being held for other central banks in other countries. Europe's got a lot of gold. Britain doesn't have much. But what's happened is that about, was it 3 or 4 years ago, the BIS relegated to change gold from a tier 3 asset to a tier 1 asset, which means it's as good as the US dollar. And all of a sudden, the countries that are holding the dollar have been running pell-mell into gold as fast as they can. And that's just what they're reporting to the World Gold Council. Nobody knows really what the supply-demand fundamentals by these countries or by the central banks of the world are, because some of them just are flat out lying about it, or they're not reporting it. It's really interesting to see what's going on. Like you said, there's a lot of gold flying from west to east, and silver too, because there's quite a premium on silver in Shanghai right at the moment over the U.S. price. But and there was a piece out which I'm going to be in my column tomorrow about the amount of gold being purchased by the central banks of the world, mostly, like you said, non-Western banks, and they're just adding it as fast as they can. And this has been going on since 2008 or something like that. They've been adding just piles of gold to the reserves. So the dollar fiat currency system that we've had since 1971 is slowly sliding into oblivion. And sooner, one of these days, it's going to change, and we're going to have a new system. And Bretton Woods we went off the gold standard in 71. That's 54 years ago, and I remember the day that happened too. We're going to have a new financial system, and it will come, like Hemingway said about bankruptcy, slowly at first and then suddenly. And I think what the central banks of the world are doing, small and large, are sucking up all the gold they can afford in preparation for the day that commodities, basically backed by gold, commodities and gold will basically back whatever new currency is coming, whether it be a BRICS currency or something agreed on everywhere through the BIS or whatever. But the fiat currency system that we have based on dollar right now is, it's on its last legs, and slowly but surely, the central banks in the countries of the world are realizing that, and are accumulating gold and silver accordingly.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Ed, anything else you want to talk about that we didn't get a chance to before we wrap up?
No, I'm not entirely surprised that we saw gold and silver get smacked, but like I said, this is all paper trading in the COMEX futures market. It had nothing to do with Trump or the dollar, the big
Right.
dollar index rally we saw, because it was, gold and silver wanted to rally despite that. And then, of course, we get the FOMC meeting results tomorrow, and that's going to affect the gold price. And the boys, the paper hangers in New York are going to be there waiting to see what happens. And they're desperate. They got to they got to prevent gold prices from rising too quickly, and silver prices, etc. But it's a game they're going to lose, and they know it. And it's just a matter of controlling the price rise.
Excellent. Well, hey, Ed, where can people find you?
Well, if they want to find my work, you can just Google my name, Ed Steer, Steer, Ed Steer Gold Silver, and my website will pop up. And there's a tab on there that says free sample column of my newsletter. You click on that, and it shows you what you get for $100 US a year. And I write about 260 columns a year, and it's for $100 a year. It's dirt cheap.
Excellent. We'll have a link to that down below. Be sure to check it out, guys. And if you enjoyed this content, remember to give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you're finding value out of these videos. If you enjoyed what we said and you agreed with what Ed had to say, type in "Go Ed Go" in the comments. If we disagreed with anything, let me know what it was. I do read the comments. If you'd like to support us on another level, you can always check out our Substack, capitalcosm.substack.com. Link to that is down below as well. Ed, thank you so much for coming on. And guys, thank you so much for watching. And I'll catch you in the next episode.